You'll be pleased to know that I have found some Egyptian fruit bats.
Right.
There's good news and bad news.
Are they hundreds of millions of pounds?
They are £6,000 each.
Right.
So good news for you, bad news for Josie. And we would have to fly to Florida to get them.
Okay. I will let her know.
Yeah,
I think actually, because you've encouraged it so much, you should be the one to give her the bad news. So, Josie, darling, Kate would like a word with you, please.
Well, Sarah would like me to have a word with you, please. I've found some fruit bats for sale.
Go on.
Egyptian fruit bats. The good news is they are available for sale. There are 3 girls and 2 boys.
We want a boy, don't we, if he's going to be called Baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad news is we would need to go to Florida to get them and probably smuggle them back into the UK.
The thing is, Kate, I don't think you thought about this, mate, because we've got English bats.
Well, in fairness, I haven't had a lot of time.
An Egyptian one from Florida.
Well, they're $6,000.
Yeah, no, I'll go in the woods.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Catch a wild one, you mean?
Yeah.
All
right.
right.
This hasn't gone how I thought it was going to go.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's another good
You go
idea.
to Florida a lot, don't you?
No, I've never been to Florida, but
Oh.
I appreciate your optimism. But
You go to America, you've got American listeners. Can you put it out?
Okay. Do you have a fruit bat? They have a lot.
So you're willing to
France.
smuggle illegally to the UK?
They've got a lot of bats in France. I know a lot of people that have got barns and things in France, and the roofs of them are covered in bats. So we could easily go out there and get one.
Done. I'm there. Tell me when.
All right. Well, let's get our shit together and we'll go.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Sorted.
Thanks.
Of course. Done. Just saved you $6,000 there, mate. You're welcome.
I know what my random blam's going to be.
Random blam, go.
Oh, good Lord. Firstly, I want to put out there that our lovely listener, Karen, gave us a random blam of her own, and I loved that.
So we're gonna, yes, I do you know what? I've been buzzing about that. Those messages, that we got, so cool.
We've had a lot of love for the Friday the 13th episode, and just generally the podcast in general. We've had a lot of love, and so yeah, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
If you've got a random blam you want us to know, then please get in touch, because I love that that's a thing now with other people.
I do too. And can we read Karen's random blam?
We can read out Karen's random blam, I believe.
Sup, Karen?
You can read it.
I have it here. I'm almost at the point of saving these things as my wallpaper, because honestly, it brightens my day so much. So Karen sent us a message, and she said that the episode for the Friday the 13th axe murder, this was amazing. Y'all nailed it. Love that.
Love that.
Love that.
I'm going to try and slip that into my vocabulary more.
What, y'all?
Y'all.
I know. It sounds like we're taking the piss, though.
Oh.
I just want to be cool. just want to be cool.
And she said, here's a random blam for you. I lived on that street that Betty was murdered. It's called Dogwood Street, and the house is still there.
Road trip?
Road trip?
Yes. Do you still live near it, Karen? Or do you live in a completely different place?
Because we could vacation there. Just stay with Karen.
We could. Sarah, Kate and Karen. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Right. Josie wants to get involved with the random blams. What is your random blam, please, darling?
Oh, hi.
My random blam
is
that MC Hammer saved my dad's life and said that I was cute when I was in a buggy.
That's really random and very blammy.
Good, isn't
How
it?
did that happen?
So we were in Florida and my dad walked into the ocean. As he ran in under the water, there was like a dip in the sand, and my dad fell and broke his ankle and he couldn't get up. So the waves were coming at him.
Jesus.
And MC Hammer was going for a run on the beach and he saw what happened and he dragged my dad out of the water and saved him. And then I was in a buggy and he said that I was cute.
That's cool. Did it when he ran into the ocean? Did he in his massive MC Hammer pants? Wow.
I don't.
They were like flotation pants.
Yeah.
He was like, climb aboard, I'll save you.
If I'm being honest, I don't remember this because I was very young. My dad told me this story, but when I relate it to my mum, she says that it didn't happen.
She's like, nah.
But
That's
I don't
cool.
think Mum would have known who MC Hammer was.
Did she admit that your dad went in the sea and broke his ankle?
Yeah, after he'd been attacked by a pelican, yeah.
Oh. Where did the pelican come in?
Oh, they're just around, aren't they? And he was winding it up and it went for his face.
Well, he deserved it then. If he's winding it up.
Deserved the broken ankle and the near-death drowning.
Maybe not the near-death drowning. That's a bit extreme. I don't know.
The broken ankle
I don't quite know the rage of pelicans, but yeah. That's cool.
Thanks, listeners.
Next week, it's going to be you and Josie doing the story. Boycotted the episodes now.
What's your random blam then, Poddy?
Random blam is that my girlfriend's dad was saved by MC Hammer one time.
Who was also a pelican.
Yes.
Right, so are you giving away your random blam?
Yeah, I've given it away because I'm just not interested.
Well, I mean, random blams don't have to be exciting or interesting. My random blam for this week is I will attempt to hug and kiss any animal.
That's true.
Uh-huh. Well, so for my birthday, we went to Jimmy's farm. Big fan. And I love the tapirs. It's my mum's like favourite animal. So I always go and see the tapirs. And a couple of years ago, I had Claire's mum bought me an experience to go in with the tapirs. It was bought for me for my birthday from Claire's mum and Claire's sister. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Spent hours in there rolling around with the tapirs. So then when we went this year, the guy said to me, oh, look, there's the tapirs over there. Go and see if they remember you. Like, ha, ha, ha. And so we all went over and they came to the fence and that. And I was obviously like trying to get to them. And this tapir came over and he only did this to me, but he put his little snout, because they've got like little baby elephant snouts.
Yeah.
Like move around all over the place. And he was putting his little snout all over my head and over my face. And oh, lolly. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It made my birthday, that did.
Yeah. Little tapir kisses.
Yeah. And he was there for a while, like podding me all over my face. And he didn't do it to anyone else. So I think he maybe did recognise me.
I think that he did.
Yeah, and he was giving me tapir kisses. So for this year, I had tapir kisses for my birthday and I loved it. But yes, I will go out of my way. Whether or not I'm going to get badly hurt or not is that thought is secondary to me.
You would not have survived the trip to Kruger.
No, I would not. No, definitely.
There was a lot of elephants and giraffes in like touching distance. And
yeah, I can't control myself. I would have been like, I just have to touch it.
Yeah.
Just have to touch it. And if I can quickly like kiss it, even, I mean, that is how I'll die. Yeah, I'll just give that lion a quick kiss on the snout if I can, like that, and it will get startled and rip my face off.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm good with it. I've come to terms with that a long time ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, that might happen at the weekend when you come here. If you meet Susie and you try and give her a kiss, she will scratch your face right off.
Oh, no, that will happen,
That will.
definitely, because I know this about Susie, and yet I will still go for the kiss.
She will scratch your eyes right out.
Uh-huh.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll enjoy my eyes while I can.
Okay. Right,
And
Random
then-
Blam's done.
Random Blam's done. Cool.
I've been really spacey these last few days, and I think it's from the chemo. It makes me quite sort of vacant, and sometimes I just stare.
I just zone out.
I do. There's nothing going through my brain. I just feel very, very vacant sometimes.
Well, that's all right.
So it took me a long time to write this episode because I couldn't
Focus.
I just couldn't focus, couldn't get into it. But last night I committed to it and got it all out, and it's a story that I've been wanting to tell for ages, so I'm really excited for it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it just by the title, but also it might potentially make me feel a little bit sick.
Yes. Yeah, trigger warning for this one as well. It's quite graphic, quite gory.
Brilliant. Okay.
So,
well,
and I know a lot of people listen to this on their morning commute, but if you have got a sturdy stomach, then that's absolutely fine. But some people in the mornings might not be ready for what's about to come.
okay. Well, I appreciate, and we all appreciate, the trigger warning. Let's get on with it then. Roll the titles. Morning.
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 I've got a
Dreary
slight.
morning.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got a slight rasp to my voice this morning. It's a little bit scratchy and sore. So
Is it scratchy and sore or husky and sexy?
no, it's scratchy and sore.
Oh, that sucks.
Sorry. But today's episode, Cannibal Cafe. I deliberated a lot over what to call this episode. Because there's a lot. It's got a lot of different names everywhere. Other people have retold it and things, and it's got a lot of other names. But I went for Cannibal Cafe, and I think you'll see why as I read the story. So this is the story of Armin Meyers, and he was born in December the 1st, 1961 in Germany. He lived with his parents and two half-siblings in a 44-room farmhouse.
Jesus Christ, 44 rooms.
44 rooms. It was a massive, massive farmhouse.
Sounds it.
Very dilapidated, very run down, but it was a working farm. At the age of 8, Armin watched his father and his two older half siblings get into the car and leave the house, and they never returned. And Armin said that is something that sticks in his mind a lot. It's quite a vivid memory. He was out playing and he saw his dad leave and was like, oh, I wonder where they're going. They got in the car and then they just left, didn't say a word, anything, just left and never came back. So Armin was now left solely in the care of his mother, and his mother was quite authoritarian. She was very controlling, and I think because obviously her husband had left, she'd become quite bitter, and she took that out on Armin. So she liked to humiliate him and talk down to him, especially in public, and she liked to make him feel small and made him do all the chores around the 44-room farmhouse. One of the chores as well would be to help his mum with the slaughtering of the animals. So he became quite obsessed from a young age with the slaughtering of these animals. So I think that was a bit of a trauma, perhaps.
We had someone else like that, didn't we? That I can't think who it was.
Was it Willie Picton?
Yeah, it might have been actually, because
Willie Picton grew
when
up
you
on
said
a farm
about
with
a working farm, and I thought,
Yeah.
ugh. But that's
Yeah.
very similar, isn't it? Like a mother
Yes.
that was very dominant and controlling and slaughtered animals as a child, and
Yeah.
the pattern.
So the abandonment of his father, and obviously the slaughtering of the animals, his mother, the controlling dominant mother, it traumatized him from a very young age. And so he was a very lonely and unhappy child.
Oh.
And he started to develop an obsession with an old German fairy tale. And we all know it, and it's the story of Hansel and Gretel.
Oh no.
So he became quite obsessed just with the part about fattening up Hansel to be eaten.
Why couldn't he have just built a giant like cookie house and like let everyone enjoy it? And why couldn't he have been obsessed with that part of it?
There's still a little bit something wrong with that.
Well, yeah, but I'd
Yeah.
eat it.
So Armin was a bit strange. He was bullied incredibly at school. He was a loner. He was an outsider. He literally didn't have any friends at all. Nobody that he could, say that he spoke to at school. He just kept to himself. He was extremely lonely. So when he was 12, Armin created an imaginary friend. I've put friend/brother because it was just an imaginary person for him. And he called him Frankie. So Frankie for him was somebody that didn't bully him, that didn't tell him what to do, and it was somebody that he could actually control, and that it was somebody that he knew wouldn't leave him.
Yeah,
He'd created
he felt
this
safe
person.
with.
Exactly. And it was around that time that Armin became introduced to the story of Robinson Crusoe. I wasn't very familiar with the story, so I did look it up. And it's very long, so I'll summarize it for people that don't know what it is. But it's about a sailor that's shipwrecked on an island, and that island is inhabited by cannibals. And he then became from Hansel and Gretel. He then became obsessed with the story of Robinson Crusoe. And after reading that and becoming obsessed, what Armin actually took from that story was that there was a way that he could be with someone forever. So by cannibalism and ingesting these people, they would always forever be a part of him.
Oh God, that's Jeffrey Dahmer. He said that as well.
That is the case with most cannibals. It's especially with, when they murder their victims, they want that. They don't want them people to leave them. It's when I was doing the research, it's a very common thing. It's an extremely lonely person that obviously turns out into cannibalism does it for that purpose. So as Armin started to develop, he was getting older, Armin's interest in cannibalism turned sexual. And he started to fantasize about his classmates and cutting up their bodies and then ingesting them. And you often find that, especially at that sort of pivotal age where they're going through puberty, those sort of fetishes do.
I was thinking those kind of fishes. What?
Those kind of fetishes do turn into a sexual nature. Yeah. So he was getting off on the idea of cutting up bodies and then ingesting them. At the age of 19, Armin joined the army, and he said himself that he absolutely thrived in the army. He was used to working hard. He was used to taking orders, following orders. His fellow soldiers thought that he was quite a nice, normal man. Didn't think anything of him. He wasn't weird, and Armin kind of put his fetish to a side, and he just blended into society. He served in the army for 12 years, and then once he left the army, he trained as a computer technician, and he settled down into a normal life and a normal job. And he was still living with his mother, and even though he had a very strange relationship with his mother, she was the only person that he had. And his life up until that point, because he'd led a relatively normal life until 1999 when his mother actually died. So Armin was absolutely devastated. Like I say, his mother wasn't the best mother that she could have been. but it was still somebody that was in his life, and he kind of knew where he stood with her. And now he literally had nobody, no one at all. And he feared being alone so much that he constructed a shrine to his mother in the house, in her bedroom, and created a plastic mannequin that he would dress in her clothes.
When you said about his mum, I was already getting like Norman Bates vibes.
Yeah, wearing her skin.
yeah. It just feels like this story is already like a mixture of like Jeffrey Dahmer.
It's interesting because it does follow that pattern with the serial killers. Like Dahmer got himself a mannequin that he would lay with at night because he was lonely, and the mannequin wouldn't leave him. So very, very similar. But he used to dress this mannequin up in his mother's clothes, and he used to tuck the mannequin up each night in his mother's bed, pillow under the head, like really tuck her up, and then in the morning get her up and ready for the day. He would also, Norman Bates, dress in her clothes, and he would impersonate her voice in the house, and he would take on her role in the house as well. And
jeez, that's really Norman Bates, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. But so now for the first time in his life, he was completely alone. He had nobody in that 44-room house, nobody controlling him, nobody to report to. And he, aside from doing his job as a computer technician, he developed an obsession with internet porn, particularly those that involved torture and pain. And it was while he was searching these deep, dark corners of the internet on the dark web that he found that he actually had something in common with other people in these forums. These forums contained like-minded people. So for the first time in his life, he actually fit in. And he found a website called Cannibal Cafe. And that really baffled me, that something like that could exist. I know there's so much worse out there, but the fact that somebody can create a website like that and it be allowed to run really baffles me.
Tell me more about it.
So the website was it was a forum for people to post about their fantasies, about their fetishes. They would talk about what they wanted to do to people, they wanted to do to them. So it was just like for people to talk about their fantasies and stuff. So
specifically like targeted around fantasies about cannibalism.
Yeah, cannibalisms, and also masochism, so pain. A lot of things were about pain and torture as well. It wasn't just about cannibalism, but also about people wanting
like enjoying pain and
either inflicting pain or receiving pain.
I don't enjoy that.
No,
it's not for me. I don't like to be hurt unless I get an animal kiss out of it. I've been bitten and kicked and things, but I'm willing to take that, but that's not my that's not why I do it. I'm in it for the kisses.
Well, I think that the Cannibal Cafe website is no longer running, so you can't go on it.
Okay. I'm all right with that.
But anyway, so he found this website called Cannibal Cafe, and he absolutely relished this forum. So it was the first time that he could express himself. It was the first time that he could actually talk to other like-minded people about how he was feeling, about what his fantasies were. And he was getting encouraged, and he fit in there, and he quickly consumed all of the content that was available to him. He consumed it, and once he'd consumed this content, Armin started to create his own content, and he started posting things on the forum. And he was a whiz at the computer. He studied computer technology, so he used his skills on the computer to manipulate images, and he made it appear as though he was a real cannibal and that he'd done this before. So he became quite creative, actually, and he fashioned figures out of marzipan. And he would take photos of himself chopping up these marzipan figures. And then he would use Photoshop and he would, detail them and whatever else. So it looked like he was cutting up real human flesh. And then he would post that on the forums as well. I think he didn't really realize what his fetish was. What you see most in serial killers and things like that is that they relish the killing, that they've got a fantasy about killing. Armin didn't. So Armin's fetish was quite specific. He wanted male flesh from a person that he knew and liked, who would voluntarily give themselves up. He didn't want to take people off the street and kill them for his purposes. He wanted to dismember the body, and what he said was he wanted to slaughter the body. So it was, for him, it wasn't about that person living, that he wanted them dead. That was a means to an end.
Right.
Somebody that was willing to be eaten. That was very important to him. And
well, someone would be, I don't understand. So someone's gonna go to him and go, I would like you to kill and eat me.
That is exactly what happens.
What?
Yes. So the bit that turned him on most was basically the dismemberment and slicing up of the dead body.
Right.
And then eating the flesh. That's what he wanted. So he turned one of the bedrooms in the upper floors of the farmhouse into what he called the slaughter room. And I use air quotes because I think what you're thinking and what I'm thinking are probably quite similar, but I'll describe to you the slaughter room. So it was quite a small room. It wasn't huge at all, and it was extremely bare, and there was no like wallpaper or decoration. It literally looked like the walls had been burnt. I couldn't tell whether it was like it was like black, but it looked like peeling paint maybe, but it was a disgusting room. It's not somewhere I'd want to be. I didn't know if it was mold or something growing on the walls because it was like speckled in black. But it wasn't a very inviting room anyways. There was a single bed with a disgusting looking mattress on top.
Oh, why is there always a rank mattress?
Really rank mattress on the top?
There.
And at the end of the bed, up against the wall, was a handmade wooden box which was covered in chicken wire. Don't know what the box was for. It was big enough that a person, he could have put a person in there or something, but I don't know what it was for. It was a very large box.
Was there a girl in it?
There was nobody in it. There was just a picture of the
just checking that it's not overlapping with another story where it's like the girl in the box.
Not at all, no. But what I pictured when he said the slaughter room was, do you remember the toy box killer? And that he'd converted like whatever it was, a caravan or something like that. And if you've never seen it, that is when somebody says slaughter room, that is what I pictured, because there was all sorts. There was a chair in there that he would strap people to, and then every single sort of instrument, a torture instrument that could be available was in that room. So Armin Meyers' slaughter room was not that at all. It literally was just a bed and a box. So now that he'd got this room set up, Armin began searching the Cannibal Cafe for his willing participant, and he posted under the pseudonym of his imaginary friend / brother Frankie. So he posted an advert on the Cannibal Cafe that read "Slaughter Boy Wanted," and he put, "I am looking for a young, well-built man aged 18 to 25 to be slaughtered and then consumed." And that was his advert. And believe it or not, people responded.
I don't get it. What? I don't get why you'd want to be killed and eaten.
I don't get why you'd want to kill and eat people.
No, but why would you voluntarily be killed and... Ugh.
Well, so the people that responded to Armin's advert weren't up to what he wanted.
They
so
weren't delicious enough.
He was quite specific about what he wanted. So Armin actually decided that he would adjust the age bracket to 30 just to widen the search. And he received more than 200 replies.
Get out of it.
No, I will not. I've had less replies about selling some shoes on the internet.
That's 200 people.
Yes, that were willing to be his slaughter boy. So he went through a sort of screening process. So one of the replies that he actually received, I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
So he put out his search looking for somebody to be slaughtered, and he received a reply that said, "Hello, Frankie. I've been looking for a seasoned butcher for some time who could slaughter me and let me bleed out. If you're interested, here's my email address." And another response that he got says, "Dear Frankie, I've been looking for an experienced butcher who stuns me like a cop with a nail gun and then lets it bleed and bleed. When do you have time for it?"
It's
And
so casual.
Armin replied, "I hope I can cut you up soon. Tell me more about yourself." And he said, the reply was, "Frankie, I am 178 centimeters tall, 78 kilograms in brackets when I'm naked, black haired, strong build, and healthy. When would you like to slaughter me?" All very, very blasé.
So casual. Yeah. When would you
Really,
like
really
to come for a
casual.
viewing of the car
Yes.
that's on the front drive?
That's exactly it. Here's what I look like. When do you want to cut me up and eat me? So the first guy that Armin actually met was a 34-year-old cook named it's a very German name, but it's I'm gonna go for Jörg Bose. And Armin invited Jörg to his home and then took him up to the slaughter room. And Jörg, he said he was aroused by the whole idea, and they went through the motions. But he said when Armin strung him up on, there was like a pulley where Armin had set up so that he could once they were dead, he would butcher them. He'd put them on this pulley, like a pig, I suppose.
Yeah.
But when Armin started going through that process, Jörg was like, "Actually, no, this is a bit too much for me. I don't want to go through this anymore."
Changed my mind.
And Armin was like, "No, that's fair enough." Armin wanted a willing participant, so he let Jörg down and let him go on his way. And we know all of this because Armin actually recorded the whole thing from start to finish. He recorded his interaction with Jörg.
Like
so those tapes,
on video?
Yes. Yeah,
I don't know
video
why that's video.
I don't know what you've done there. Yeah. But yeah, so Armin had actually recorded the whole process.
Goodness.
Armin met up with a lot of other like-minded men in hotel rooms. One of them wanted to be impaled and roasted on a spit. Another one wanted to be killed with a hammer and then slaughtered. But what generally tended to happen is that Armin would meet up with these people. They would talk about their fantasies. They would have sex. And then when Armin started getting serious about cutting up their bodies and, drawing on them about where he was going to cut out, I think the imminent thought of death generally scared these people. And they was like, that just the fantasy of it was enough for them. They didn't need to actually fulfill it. They just wanted to go through the role play, and that was enough. But that wasn't enough for Armin. So for a long time, Armin was obviously seeking the correct person that he wanted. And then Bernd Brands came along. Bernd Brands was a 42-year-old man, and he also lived in Germany. Now, as a child, he was a normal, happy, healthy boy. His dad, I think, was a doctor, and his mum was an anesthetician. She used to anesthetize people and
knock them out.
Yep. When one of her clients died, or one of her patients died on the table, she felt that it was her fault. I think she'd done something wrong because she got the dosage wrong and the patient had died. So she ended up committing suicide because of it. And I think Bernd was 5 or something at the time, so he was very young when that happened.
Mm.
And as a little boy, he blamed himself quite heavily for his mum's death, and he hated himself because of it. So from a young age, that hate turned into this like self-destructive fantasy that he had, and he was intent on inflicting as much pain as possible to himself to almost compensate for what he felt that he'd done. So while Armin was posting on the internet forums looking for willing participants, Bernd was also putting out posts on the Cannibal Cafe, and his post was titled "Your Dinner," and he put, "I offer to let myself be eaten alive, therefore whoever really wants to do it needs a genuine victim." And that was his post. And he'd previously posted on there as well, and another one of his posts said, "Since puberty, I've wanted to be bitten and eaten. This desire has lasted a long time and will last until it finally comes true." And I couldn't tell you where this comes from. This is all sorts of dark, and I know that from his mother's death he turned inwards, and that self-loathing turned into this obsession with wanting to cause himself pain.
Yeah.
But Bernd had an obsession with wanting to have his penis bitten off.
Oh God.
So he was a gay man, and I think coming out to his dad had been incredibly hard. So I think that perhaps that self-loathing, he loathed the fact that he was gay as well. So I think perhaps that's why.
Yeah, directed it at his penis.
Yeah.
Like his penis had to be punished.
Yes. Very much so.
Oh,
so he had actually, throughout the years, he'd gone to different male prostitutes and had always asked them to inflict as much pain as possible and to bite his penis off. But nobody wanted to do that. And
really?
So, yep, there was no willing participant to bite his penis off. So it seemed that the pair were actually a perfect match for each other.
Yeah.
So when Bernd came across Armin's post, he wanted to make sure that Armin was actually a man of his word, and it wasn't just a fantasist, and that he would genuinely go through with it. The same as Armin was doing exactly the same. He wanted someone that genuinely wanted to go through with it. So Bernd asked Armin how many people he had butchered, and Armin replied, this is his actual reply, okay?
Okay.
"Well, let's say I have experience. In any case, you wouldn't be the first. 23, that's an optimal butchering age. The body has just matured and is still very tender. Write me more about yourself, your height and weight. I'm 38, 6 feet and 165 pounds. I look forward to your reply. Your master butcher." So Bernd actually lied to Armin about his weight and his height and his age, because he was older than what Armin was looking for, and he was bigger, heavier than what Armin was looking for. So he actually lied to fit into Armin's required bracket.
Mad, isn't it?
Which is incredibly strange. So the pair got to talking, and they realised that actually they had a lot in common. So they agreed to meet in 1 month's time. And during that month, they discussed how they would do it. And they kind of planned out every little detail of what they both wanted to do.
Because Armin had lied as well, hadn't he? Armin had said, I'm an experienced butcher and that, but he'd just sliced up a load of marzipan.
That's exactly right.
That's it. Both liars.
He had butchered animals before, because that was part of his job on the farm, but never a human. So in the weeks leading up to their agreed meeting date, which was the 9th of March 2001. So this is all, I still think the year 2000 is very recent.
Yeah, so do I.
When I saw that, I was like, I thought it was going to be like the 80s or something, but it wasn't massively long ago. So in preparing for their meet date, I say meet date.
Meet date.
The date that they were going to meet, but actually, their meet date. Bernd sold his car. He updated his will. He cleared his whole browser history on his computer and he deleted any correspondence that he had between himself and Armin. He took the day off work. He said that to his work that he had to attend a personal matter. And then he told his partner, Renee, so he'd been with his partner for a few years. They lived together. They were quite a serious couple. And he told his partner that he was going to travel for work. And Renee had no reason to suspect anything. Bernd often travelled for work. And he actually was still asleep when Bernd left early that morning.
Oh, and he was going to have his bits nibbled off.
Nibbled, yep. The journey from Bernd's hometown was nowhere near Armin's. That he lived, it was a 3-hour train journey away. And Bernd bought himself a one-way ticket and then boarded the train. And it was agreed that Armin would meet Bernd at the train station because Armin lived in the middle of nowhere. So even from the train station, it was still a 50-minute car journey to the farmhouse because he literally was in the middle of nowhere. So they'd exchanged pictures online. They knew what each other looked like. So when Bernd got off the train, Armin was there straight away. He knew who he was.
Okay. So he knew that he was all right with him being a bit older and heavier and...
Yeah. So when I say that he was heavier, he wasn't fat. He worked out a lot. So he actually had quite a lean, muscular physique, which pleased Armin a lot, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
When they finally reached the farmhouse, Armin, like I said, it's so strange because he wasn't a typical murderer. He'd invited this person to his house. So he was quite polite and courteous. And he was like, oh, do you want a coffee? I'll make you, just exchanging pleasantries. But Bernd was there for one reason. So he wanted to get straight to the point. He stripped completely naked and he said to Armin, this is your dinner. Admire your dinner. And honestly, the pair then went and had sex. And it wasn't what Bernd had been hoping for. He was a masochist. So he got off on pain.
Yeah.
And he wanted Armin to be, to inflict as much pain as possible.
Yeah.
But he said to Armin that he'd been too soft and too gentle. So Bernd was worried that Armin couldn't dish out the level of pain that he was after. So he was like, I don't think that you're the right person to do this to me. I think I'm just going to go home. But the issue that Armin had was that he didn't get off on inflicting pain. That was just a means to an end. He didn't want to have to do all these things, but he did, however, want Bernd's body. So to get Bernd's body, he had to oblige by what Bernd wanted. And what Bernd wanted was to have his penis cut off and eaten. So
I haven't got a penis, but it's making me cringe. Every time you say it, yeah, because I just imagine just like gristly and
gristly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love a Savoy as well. And
oh, stop it!
Gonna put me off.
Never gonna be a Savoy again.
I'd say I'm the same, but I love Savoys, so I will.
Gross.
Yeah. A Savoy is just an English thing.
I think so. I think our American listeners are not going to have any idea what you're talking about when you say a Savoy. No. It's basically a bit like a hot dog, but it's incredibly red.
Yeah, it's a very red sausage. It's very
artificial.
Not spicy or anything like that. It's like
it's cooked in water.
It's like luncheon meat, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah.
But it's got like a sort of, the red skin is quite hard. I mean, it sounds rank, but I love a Savoy. Ketchup, chip chop chips. Oh, man.
We know what you're having for lunch.
No, I've got work for lunch, so.
Gross.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Penis, yes.
At around 6:30 p.m. that evening, Armin set up his video recorder. So he wanted to capture everything on camera so that he could watch it again and again and again. It had been agreed that Bernd would take some sleeping pills, and Armin wanted him to be a little bit more sedated because he didn't enjoy seeing that amount of pain and whatever else. So Burnt took some sleeping pills and some cold medicine to sedate him, but he was adamant that he wanted to remain conscious. He didn't want to be asleep. He wanted to be fully involved in the cutting off of the genitalia. So with all that in place, Burnt actually popped his penis on the kitchen table,
as you do,
and Armin took a kitchen knife and cut it off. As you can imagine, he was screaming. Blood was squirting out like a fountain.
Oh God.
But Burnt said to Armin that after about 30 seconds, it didn't hurt anymore. So he actually was really disappointed with the level of pain that he'd suffered. He thought that it would be the worst pain imaginable, but it hadn't. So the next part of the plan was to eat the penis. And that again was something that Burnt wanted to do. He wanted to eat his own penis. So Armin blanched it. I don't. Something's gone seriously wrong if that's what you want to eat. Armin blanched it in boiling water, just shortly, just to tender it up a little bit more. He added some salt and pepper, and then he fried it in a pan. But to Burnt's utter devastation, it shriveled up and it burnt very quickly. I don't think you're supposed to be laughing at that, Kate.
I'm not.
Okay. So they tried to eat the burnt, shriveled up penis, but it was inedible. It was completely inedible. So they ended up cutting it up and then feeding it to Armin's dog.
Oh, I bet the dog was like, what the hell's
this?
This is not pedigree, chum.
Tiny little thing.
Yeah.
So while Burnt was happily bleeding out, they rewatched the footage of Armin cutting off his penis, and that was Burnt's request. So by 9:30, it's now been 3 hours, Burnt was getting quite cold and close to losing consciousness, and he said that he wanted to be in a warm bath so that death would be more comfortable. So Armin ran him a bath and helped him in, and Burnt spent the following 2 or 3 hours in that bath slowly dying. And it was said that Burnt was actually incredibly happy in that bath because he was surrounded by his own blood.
Ooh.
And that made him quite happy. So while Burnt was in the bathtub bleeding out, Armin was in the room next door, just super chill, lying on his bed reading a Star Trek novel.
As you do.
As you do.
Dog
but he was
you chewing on a penis.
Yeah. He was getting really impatient because, as I've said, he wanted Burnt dead, and then that's when his fun could really begin. So at around midnight, Burnt was still in the bathtub, and he called out to Armin and said that he no longer wanted to be in the bath. And he managed to get himself out of the bath, but then he collapsed on the bathroom floor. So Armin dragged him out and dragged him into the slaughter room and popped him on the bed. And he wanted Burnt basically to hurry up and die.
Yeah.
He was like, for God's sake,
hurry up, I'm starving.
Hours.
Yeah.
Just to die.
Looking at his like muscly arms, getting all hungry and
yeah, he was ravenous. He was like, I've been waiting so long for this.
Kept
just
walking
die.
in, checking on him, sprinkling salt on him, and then
yeah. And Burnt had said to Armin, no matter what you do not call an ambulance. Burnt was quite clear that he did not want to be saved and that he just wanted to bleed out and die.
Yeah.
In the early hours of the morning, though, Burnt was still clinging to life.
Oh, blimey.
So Armin took a knife and stabbed him twice in the neck. So Burnt was now dead, and Armin could begin his lifelong fantasy He dragged Burnt's body off of the mattress and hoisted him up, hung him upside down on the meat hook in the ceiling.
Ugh.
He then dismembered Burnt's body, painstakingly slicing him up like a butcher, how they would cut all the different cuts of meat from the animal. And again, we know all of this because it was recorded on camera.
Oh my goodness.
And that tape was played. I think there was 4 hours of footage from that tape, and they played 19 minutes of it for the jury because it was just so vile, and it made some of the jury very sick and in need of a lot of counselling.
Yeah, I bet. I feel a little bit queasy.
Armin wasted nothing of Burnt's. Once he'd done cutting all the meat off the body, I found this very difficult when I was writing it because they kept saying cutting the meat off the body or storing the meat. I didn't know another way to say it because I felt that was really disrespectful to Burnt that I was saying that, but I didn't know how else to say it. So, you know, it was Burnt's flesh that he was cutting off.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to come across that I'm cold-hearted and I was like, oh, we just cut all the meat off the body and slung it in the bin.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how else to say it.
Well, it's not something we often have to say, is it?
No. But once Armin was finished bagging up all so basically he cut them all into portion size and then put them into different bags, and then he kept it in a false bottom of his freezer. He then pulverized Burnt's bones, and he used that powder to make bread. So he literally didn't waste a single thing. And this is a quote directly from Armin about his first cannibal meal. And he says, I decorated the table with nice candles. I took out my best dinner service and fried a piece of rump steak, a piece from his back, made what I call princess potatoes and Brussels sprouts. After I prepared my meal, I ate it. The first bite was, of course, very strange. It was a feeling I can't really describe. I'd spent over 30 years longing for it, dreaming about it, and now I was getting the feeling that I was actually achieving this perfect inner connection through his flesh. The flesh tastes like pork, but stronger, more substantial. Although I don't think that other people would have noticed the difference had they eaten it. It tasted really good.
That actually made me feel quite sick.
Sorry. Meanwhile, when Burnt didn't return home from his supposed work trip, his partner Renee was obviously quite worried. And he called up Burnt's place of work, where he was informed that actually there had been no work trip and that Burnt had called in and said that he's got a family matter to attend to. So Renee then reported him missing, but Burnt had been so careful about covering his tracks that it was kind of as though he just vanished off the face of the earth. He deleted all his history, you know, sold all of his stuff, and police had no leads or clues or any idea of what had actually happened to Burnt. However, 3 months after Burnt's death, Armin was back online looking for his next meal. He went back on the Cannibal Cafe. But this time, he didn't need to recreate his photos. He didn't need the marzipan. He actually posted on the forums and included photos and proof of what he'd done. And he wanted people to know that he was serious about what he was doing and that he didn't want any time wasters, and he wanted genuine people that were genuinely interested in being eaten.
Yeah, because he'd had a lot of people that backed out, didn't they?
Yeah. So he was like, this is what I've done. Come at me.
Bro.
But the photos were so graphic and so shocking that one of the users of the site actually reported Armin to the police.
Oh.
So it took them about 5 months to track Armin down and then to get a search warrant for his home.
Bloody hell.
And when they did, police, give it their due, they actually found the false bottom in the freezer. So they removed all the remaining meat. There was still some left that had belonged to Bernd. These bags of flesh were confiscated, they were tested, and they obviously revealed that they were human. They had belonged to humans. Police also found Bernd's hands, the skeleton of his hands, his feet, and also his skull.
Where were they?
They're just dotted around the farmhouse. They weren't necessarily
geez.
anywhere of they weren't in his bedroom. I think they said they found the skull just out by the shed. But Bernd had actually joked with Armin and said that you can use my skull as an ashtray. But I don't think that he did do that. No. Just slung it out. So Armin was arrested, obviously, while police searched his apartment for more evidence. But unbelievably, Armin was let go. There wasn't enough evidence there to say that Armin had actually committed a crime.
Right.
There was no evidence there that Armin had killed Bernd. Yes, he had his head. Yes, he had his hands. Yes, he had his body. But cannibalism is not a crime.
No, well, I was going to ask you, like, about where does it come in to play? Okay.
I'm going to go through this because
I was going to ask you, and I will, but later. So the police didn't find the videotape because that would have obviously been incriminating. And they couldn't gather up enough evidence to charge Armin with murder. But Armin, he was a smart man. He knew that he'd been caught, but he also knew that there was a loophole in the system. Now, in Germany, and in most countries, actually, even in the UK, I believe, cannibalism is not a crime. There is no punishment in the law for cannibalism. Most people are generally put away for crimes relating to the cannibalism, like murder, for instance, or desecration of a corpse. All of other charges that kind of relate to that. But cannibalism itself, not a crime. And cannibalism is defined as the non-consensual consumption of a human being. Oh,
however, Armin had proof that this was consensual. So he went to a lawyer and told them all about this. And the lawyer said that he needed to confess what he'd done to the police and that he needed to hand over this video evidence. There wasn't enough evidence to charge Armin with murder or even manslaughter at the time, but what he did plead guilty to was a charge of assisted suicide. So on January the 30th, 2004, Armin Meyers was found not guilty of murder, but he was instead found guilty of the lesser crime of manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. Armin was outraged, and he maintained that Bernd wanted to die, and he said that it was a killing by request, which in Germany carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. So the public were also outraged. They believed that Armin should have been given a murder charge. His acts were horrific, and they wanted him, quite rightly, to pay. And the prosecution felt the same. The prosecution really wanted to get him on a murder charge. So a year after his sentencing, the prosecution filed an appeal, which was granted. So the judge's sentence was reversed, and that meant that prosecution could go back to trial and this time charge him with murder. The prosecution said that on the video, it was clear that Bernd was still breathing when Armin had stabbed him in the neck. They also said that because Bernd had taken so many sleeping pills and so much cough medicine, that he was in no fit state to agree to consent to anything. Yeah. Right. So although there was a tremendous amount of blood lost from the castration, that's not how Bernd died. Bernd died because Armin had stabbed him in the neck. And to be able to prove a murder charge, so according to German law, murder is the act of ending someone's life motivated by greed or to satisfy the killer's own sexual desires or to cover up another crime. So in order to proceed with his sexual fantasy, Armin had to kill Bernd.
Yeah.
So that is how they proved that it was a murder.
Murdered. Yeah.
So
Goodness.
yeah, their case stated that Armin Meyers killed Bernd Brand for his own sexual pleasure, which is essentially what he did. So in May 2006, Armin Meyers was convicted of the murder of Bernd Brands, and his sentence changed to life in prison with a minimum of 15 years.
Goodness.
And that is the story of the Cannibal Cafe.
Well, that was brilliant and gross and disturbing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel comfortable. He didn't like attack someone and take their life, and it was all consensual, and he was very careful about it being consensual.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernd was giving his consent, and that is what he wanted.
Yeah. And Armin was...
It wasn't even as brutal as Bernd wanted it to be.
Yeah. Armin was very smug on the stand when he was going through his trial. He was really smug because he thought for sure they can't convict him of anything because he'd done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Cannibalism itself isn't a crime, and Bernd had wanted to die, and it was like he tried to prove it was an assisted suicide.
Yeah.
But because he was getting impatient.
Yeah. I don't think it should have been murder. I'm not saying that I'm okay with that, because
it's a different type of murder, isn't it? It's not murder that he's plucked someone off the street for his own greed. It was a murder that was wanted almost.
Yeah, it was like you say, it was an assisted suicide that also fit in with Armin's needs. Or it's almost like the same as if you met someone on the street and they leapt out the bushes and they strangled you for a bit, and you kind of almost lost consciousness, and you would then report that to the police, and they would be charged with, I don't know, ABH or
attempted
assault
murder
or attempted murder or whatever it is. But what happens when you met online through mutual fetishes or whatever? You met online, and that you meet that same person, but it's at their house, and you're like, I want you to strangle me until I lose consciousness. And if the police just suddenly happened to appear and they said, well, that's assault, and you were like, no, that's why I'm here, that's what I wanted, they'd go, all right,
each to their own,
behind what goes on behind closed doors. So what's the difference with this? I think
it's a very, very it's very difficult topic. That's why I picked it, because there's plenty of cannibal stories out there, but none quite like this.
No, it's very perplexing. It's so all parts of it are perplexing. It's perplexing to me because I don't feel like that, and I don't feel like Armin does, and I don't feel like Bernd does, and also I am confused by the whole like murder charge or assisted suicide charge, and all of it.
It's a mix of emotions, isn't it? Because
it is.
I do feel like Armin Meyers has a sick fetish, and if it was just a fetish, that's fine. But he was going through with this fetish, and to me that makes him a dangerous person, because although this time he might have been able to control it, when that fetish gets more and more and more, same as serial killers, when they start killing animals, but then that's not enough. So they start stalking women, but that's not enough. And then they start raping women, then that's not enough. So I feel like he would have been incredibly dangerous. So it's probably best that he was locked up for this, because otherwise it could well have escalated.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was looking for willing participants, it's very, very fine line, isn't it?
If any of our listeners have got any kind of connection or any fetishes or anything like that they can identify with, we'll keep you anonymous. I just want to know. I'm so curious, honestly. That's the whole point of us doing this podcast. I just don't really understand. I think if it's two people, it was two adults and they were both consensual. He wanted to do that. He wanted him to do that to him, and they did it. Why has he now been punished? I get it. I get why, because they're saying he was still alive.
Yeah.
You went up and stabbed him, but clearly that is why he was
wanted
there.
that. But it's the same as it is assisted suicide, isn't it? Like in the UK, assisted suicide is a crime. That's not a legal thing. So it's then there's a massive debate about whether that should be legal.
But it's not everywhere, is it? It's not everywhere, because people go to, I'm going to misquote, but people go abroad because it's legal out there to have to be able to have like assisted suicide. Is it the same in Germany? I don't know.
Well, it carries a sentence of a maximum 5 years. So
so I suppose
it's not legal.
It's not legal.
But
God, that's mad.
Well, there you go.
Great story. I enjoyed that, and also it made me a bit sick.
Sorry.
So,
sorry about that.
Yeah, that's my sick and twisted ways. I like you to tell me these stories that make me feel sick.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, well, I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I'm going to go and maybe not have some breakfast right away, but maybe go and have a lay down. Yeah.
If you was going to have pork chops tonight, don't.
That's true. I love pork chops as well.
Yeah, I think I've got pork chops actually.
Oh, great.
I've got tacos, but I'm using pork mince.
Oh, pork mince.
Yeah.
Minced penis.
Minced pork.
Minced pork penis. Porky
Gross.
penis. Pork penis tacos.
I'm never going to eat again.
I'm gonna go and see if I can get a Savoy.
Gross.
Love that.
All right.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have enjoyed listening to our episodes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening.
We absolutely love hearing from you guys. So you can also help support our show by donating to our Buy Me a Coffee link. We will make sure that you get a massive shout out and a big thank you in our next week's episode.
You can also follow us on social media at Perplexed Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see more videos and blooper reels, subscribe to our TikTok and YouTube channels.
You can also email us your stories at perplexedpodcasts@gmail.com.
And you can find all the relevant links in the episode descriptions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Anyways, so this week's episode.
I haven't said it yet.
I'm so bad at this.
I was just about to go morning. And you went, you put a clip in.
No. I'd be quiet now.